Turn in a call to order the Monday, October 15, 2007 joint county city council meeting. First up, we have roll call.
I've got roll call recorded already, yes.
Oh, very good.
And we have a quorum. Tony has a quorum?
Very good. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, I'd like to welcome all the county commissioners down to our house. We've enjoyed your hospitality in the past, and we just want to welcome you up here. First, I'd be looking for approval of the regular agenda.
Move for approval. Benninger.
Benninger moves. Second? Who had the second on that?
Second.
Bob Jamison had the second. Very good.
And I have a motion. I'd like to move number 4 ahead of number 1.
Second, Kavanaugh.
All those in favor of moving 4 to 1, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it.
I would entertain the same motion for the county.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's okay?
Very good.
Okay, item 4 is a presentation on the digital flood insurance rate maps for Minnehaha County by FEMA, Icon Engineering Incorporated, and the State Department.
Hello, I'm Michelle Saxman. I work with the South Dakota State Office of Emergency Management as the National Flood Insurance Program Coordinator. I have with me today Mary Jo Camrood with FEMA Region 8 and Troy Carmen with Icon Engineering and Nancy Steinberger with FEMA Region 8 also here too. And Mary Jo Camrood is going to have a brief overview of the map modernization program for you, and then Troy will be speaking. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to visit with you about the new flood insurance rate map that FEMA will be producing for the county. And I have distributed a little bit of information for you to reference later this evening or tomorrow, whenever you choose to. But I wanted to let you know that the map is here for us to discuss tonight. And I also wanted to point out that the FEMA map represents what we think the highest risk is according to our program, and that you can flood, even if you're outside a FEMA-defined floodplain or you're in an area that's unmapped by FEMA. And important to know is that you can carry flood insurance, even if you're not in a mapped area or you're at an area that you think is low risk for flood hazard. So anybody can buy flood insurance. You can buy structure or contents flood insurance also. So with that information, I wanted to let you know about that. Troy will talk about what the new flood insurance rate map looks like, and then I'll step back up and talk to you about grandfathering insurance rates after we've had an opportunity to look at the implications of the map. Troy?
Good evening. My name is Troy Carmen with Icon Engineering. We did the digital flood insurance rate maps for Minnehaha County and incorporated areas. And just a little bit of history on what these maps are and where they've been and where you might have seen them in the past. The FEMA flood insurance rate maps are simply big maps with floodplains shown on them, typically in a black and white, kind of a gray floodplain shown on it. It also includes a flood insurance study and has other background information that engineers like me like to get into and figure out about elevations and some of the details of that hydraulic and hydrologic analysis. FEMA, back in 2004, started the map modernization program, and that was a congressionally mandated program to update these maps. The City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County have had flood insurance rate maps in the past, and in particular Sioux Falls, their map is from 1982. And so that map is in dire need of some update, and this map modernization program defined how that would be updated. For the most part, it looks exactly the same. It's still a paper map. It's still black and white. But what we've added to it is a digital component, hence DFIRM, Digital Flood Insurance Rate Map. Those digital files are what the city engineers, city planners, any of the community officials can use to incorporate into their geographic information systems and make maps that are a lot more colorful. The exhibit shown above has some of that variation of that D-firm product available. So as these maps were produced, there's a few other changes that came to be. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the city had its own map, the county had its own map. Now with this map modernization program, it's a county-wide basis. So everything's shown on a single map. There's some datum changes, which means the definition of that vertical elevation was changed slightly to match current surveying standards. There's some acronyms that changed, and those are explained in the notes in infinite detail. But for the most part, the floodplain stayed the same, with a few notable exceptions. And that's probably the biggest thing we're here to talk about tonight. And that is that there were some new studies done. And those new studies took most current topographic mapping, the most current hydrologic information, so the most current information on the flow that's coming down the rivers, and put together a new floodplain. These new floodplains are delineated on parts of Skunk Creek, Willow Creek, Cherry Creek, as well as reaches of the Big Sioux River. The new D-firm, what is now presented to the mayor this afternoon as the 2007 preliminary D-firm, also included the Corps of Engineers studies, particularly the work with some of the levees around town. So, as we look at the map that I believe you all have in front of you, it's a color exhibit, it does show the district boundaries, as well as a portion of the Big Sioux River through the city. You'll see the yellow floodplain as what's called as the new floodplain. Now, this is the FEMA-defined floodplain. This is a 1% annual chance. This is one floodplain of many. This afternoon it's raining. There's a floodplain out there somewhere. It's just a lot smaller. This is a pretty big flood that we're talking about. But that yellow one is the new floodplain, and that's what's on these preliminary maps that are presented here today. And the red line is a much narrower line. That is the existing floodplain from the 1982 maps that we have currently on the ground today. So the biggest change, obviously, is that yellow floodplain is taking in significantly more property and bringing in several more folks, based on the fact that those levees aren't quite complete just yet. So we need to show the best risk we can, and that yellow area is showing just that. With that, perhaps I can pass it over to the levy discussion.
My name is Nancy Steinberger. I'm the Regional Hydraulic Engineer with FEMA in Denver. I've been up to your city a couple different times, and we've met with some of the staff here, and we've discussed some of the issues with the levees. As you may or may not know, FEMA can only show protection behind levees that have been certified. Currently, none of the levees in Sioux Falls have been certified, but we do have assurances from the Corps of Engineers that they will be certified within, we're hoping, a 2-year period for the portions that are complete. For the portions that are not complete, we're not able to show them as providing protection. That is the reason that you're seeing that really large yellow area of new floodplain that's associated with areas of the levee system that are not currently certifiable. We were able to do a provisional accreditation for the other areas of the levees, which is actually a new program that just came into place about a year ago. Normally, we would have had to show all of those levees as not providing protection unless the certification is in place. But because we have an agreement between the county and the city to get those sections of the levee certified within the next 2 years, we could show provisional accreditation. So it's kind of a good news, bad news. We were able to accredit some of the levees and not able to accredit others of the levees. So that's what you're seeing on that with that yellow. This has an explanation for that. So now the implication for this is you're going to have more properties that are in the 100-year floodplain that are going to need mandatory insurance. And I'm going to bring it back over to Mary Jo Camrud to discuss that.
There are a large number of, potentially a large number of structures that are going to be brought into the FEMA-defined floodplain as a result of this map. This map is representing what we think the highest risk is at this time, and it's important for us to have people understand that they are at risk to flood. For those areas that are being brought, or those structures being brought into a FEMA-defined floodplain, if they carry a federally regulated mortgage, they will have to purchase flood insurance. It's a federal regulation. They have an opportunity to grandfather in lower insurance rates if they purchase the flood insurance prior to the map going effective. At this time, we're estimating that the new map that's shown above will go effective in 9 to 12 months. In the meantime, FEMA will work with the community to get information out to let people know if they are going to be in a FEMA-defined floodplain and they have a federal regulated mortgage, that they will have to carry flood insurance. And we would strongly encourage them to carry flood insurance, to make it effective, to purchase flood insurance prior to the effective date of the map. As an example of what the premiums could look like, if they were to purchase flood insurance right now, it is a lower risk premium policy. The insurance policy would be roughly $800 for a $150,000 structure. That's just the structure, that's not the land, that's not the contents. But the policy for the structure, which is what the federal regulations would require, would be $800. Especially in the northwest area of the community, there are structures, residential structures that have basements. The best I can price those structures, to give you an example, would be $1,500 a year, and it's likely to be higher. So again, it's important to get folks to understand that they need to purchase flood insurance prior to the map going effective. Because again, this map is representing the highest risk according to our program, and we need to let people know that that is a high-risk area.
I'm going to ask you, these levies currently are not certified, this is not, they will become, the levies will become certified in 2 years, you're saying, a couple of years. Will the insurance then go down?
For the areas that are shown in yellow, predominantly those areas are not going to be shown as protected by flood insurance as certified levies. That area is further to the north. And the significant impact that you're seeing is the tributary that comes in from the west side. The left side of the map is Skunk Creek. And Skunk Creek had a restudy done, and we determined that there were higher flows, that there was a higher risk for flooding. And that impact has caused the flood insurance rate map to be, or the flood insurance, or the floodplain to be larger. Did you have a question?
I did. I'm just curious, by what means will you notify people in the floodplains?
Well, their mortgage company will notify them if they choose, if for no other reason. But we will be doing an extensive public outreach to get folks to understand that it's really important to try and acquire the flood insurance prior to the map going effective.
And what about those that maybe don't have a mortgage, or businesses? How will they be notified?
And those folks will also attempt to outreach and understand, get them to understand the importance of buying flood insurance, even if they're not required at this time. For the grandfathering, that lower premium can transfer to a new owner, but the insurance must remain continuous. In other words, somebody that doesn't carry flood insurance chooses to carry it, pays off their mortgage, and drops the insurance. They're still inside the FEMA-defined floodplain. If there's a break in that coverage, the next policy would be rated at the higher risk premium.
And so your notification, your public effort will include what means?
Well, we'll work with the community that will try and use your means or your media outlets to notify folks through public meetings, newspaper announcements, community announcements. We will work with the community to get that information out as best we can.
Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question about the rural areas and the other towns in Minnehaha County. Obviously, they're also along the Big Sioux River and Skunk Creek and some of the others. Will you be presenting to those city councils, and will you somehow try to reach out to the people that live in just in the rural areas, in the flood area?
Well, as part of the Minnehaha D-firm, we are going to be doing public outreach as best we can. There's a lot of areas, especially along the Big Sioux, that FEMA hasn't mapped. Flood insurance, as I mentioned earlier, is available to any of those individuals. And you might have received, or I hope that you received, Understanding Your Flood Risk. It's a double-sided page of paper, and it talks about other risks that you might be at risk for, other flooding sources, other events. So those folks that are in areas that are unmapped by FEMA or are in areas that are outside the FEMA-defined floodplain, they can all purchase flood insurance. They will be rated at a lower rate. It's only those folks that are inside a FEMA-defined floodplain that pay the higher premiums. But we have other policy rates. There's a lower rate, and then there's a specialty area called preferred risk, which is eligible for commercial structures and for residential homes.
Gerald?
Can you tell me how many additional acres have now been incorporated into this new floodplain, and how many households and businesses that's going to affect?
I don't know how many we know.
Joe, roughly speaking, the city's done an overlay with the assessor's data and property owners. It seems to be on the order of 1,500 property owners.
1,500?
1,500.
Potentially.
That are potentially within this yellow area shown just on the screen here. And that's the largest area of any change.
I'm going to back up just a minute, because bureaucrats that you're dealing with here, this is very interesting information. We have normally a little bit more information prior to our meetings. We were told that we'd receive it at the meeting, which are these maps. We don't have any other written information other than that there is a presentation in regard to updates to the digital flood insurance map. Information, half of us are Minnehaha County elected officials, the other half are the City of Sioux Falls. It says it's a presentation of the flood insurance rate maps for Minnehaha County by FEMA, and then the maps we have are the City of Sioux Falls preliminary. Are there maps that would pertain to, do we have an overlay map? Is this just the overlay map that we're dealing with for both Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls? It is titled City of Sioux Falls. Or is there some other additional information we should have, before we go a little bit further in this? Because we also have another entity, if we're dealing with this, would be Lincoln County. And I don't know if you're dealing with them separately, but they also are contained partially in the City of Sioux Falls.
Right. Now, Lincoln County is in the process of a D-firm, and Michelle can correct me if I'm wrong, but that map has not been released as a preliminary date. It has been? I'm sorry.
The Lincoln County map is going to become effective, I believe it's March 18th, but it's sometime in the early spring, Lincoln County's map will become effective. And the Minnehaha County map that we have copies of right here is pretty much the same as it is today, that's dated 2003. It is the same as it is today. The only areas that are really significantly changing are in the City of Sioux Falls.
And so this
smaller
contains
map.
City of Sioux Falls only because, as we look at it, it's there are no distinguishing streets, and it's difficult to tell whether it does extend into the county or is just the City of Sioux Falls.
I believe there might be some small sections that are within the county boundaries in that area, but most of it is with the City of Sioux Falls.
As co-chair of this meeting, is this a presentation that should maybe be for the City of Sioux Falls in regard to changes? You just indicated the Minnehaha County map is not changed and is reflective of the 2003 map.
I believe that there are some small sections that are within that area of the Big Sioux River and Skunk Creek that extend into the county.
Okay, thank you.
But most of the area is within the City of Sioux Falls.
Commissioner Tweed.
Just a question that I have, a question and then a follow-up. Do you, has there been any notification of landowners to this point?
I know the City of Sioux Falls sent out a notification about a meeting we're having tonight at 7 o'clock at the Morningside Community Center.
My question really is, can you imagine how many phone calls people will be getting that are sitting at this table tomorrow from landowners who are saying, where in the world am I supposed to find $800 or $1,500 to purchase insurance that all of a sudden I'm being told I need to purchase because the map has gotten bigger?
Yeah, this map will not become effective for about a year. So we have a year. This is why we're starting outreach at this forum today to provide outreach to the citizens of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County for them to become aware of the process instead of coming 6 months from now when it's going to become effective in 6 months. So we're starting the outreach now.
I'd just like to go on record as saying this is going to create huge, huge hardships for people.
Pat?
You talked about the rates that will go up significantly when the new map comes into play, and if landowners purchase insurance now, they'll get a lower rate. How long is that lower rate effective? Is it 12 months, or is that?
It is effective as long as they retain their policy. If they go through and cancel it because they've had it for a while, they paid off their mortgage, and then a year from now they decide to have flood insurance again, then they're rated at the higher rate. And they can transfer that lower rate policy to the next homeowner.
Okay. So in summary then, there is some 1,500 property owners within the city of Sioux Falls who currently are not in a floodplain, who will be in a floodplain when the new map comes in, and if they have a federally backed mortgage, will be required to purchase floodplain insurance.
That is correct.
Yes. Can you clarify that the dikes around the city, those are the responsibility of the Corps of Army Engineers, is that right, or how's that work?
I believe they're owned by the City of Sioux Falls, and they were built in connection with a Corps project, and we actually have some Corps people here tonight if you want to ask them directly about the projects.
Yes.
I mean,
If you are going to, did you have other individuals who would be testifying or giving
no, they were
comments?
just here if they wanted questions asked about the Corps levy project, but the northern half is being certified by the Corps, but the City of Sioux Falls actually owns the levies.
I think Bob
I was going to ask, can't they speed this up? I mean, this map is supposed to go into effect 9 or 12 months. Can't we maybe speed up the certification process so we can get the map
The lower section
changed?
that is not being certified has not been completed. So they can't be certified until they're completed.
But maybe I was misunderstanding.
The yellow area is an area that has not been completed. The northern area of where that kind of line is about Russell Street, that area is currently being certified provisionally for the next couple of years.
But I believe
It's the lower section that
earlier,
is not.
earlier my question to her was whether the certification would alter this at all, and I was told no, that they would still be within that plane, and whether the levies are certified or not is not going to make a difference in regard to the insurance cost. Isn't that what you'd say?
Correct. The northern section, the southern section that is the major yellow area is currently a levy project that is not completed. So until that is done, insurance rates are not changing.
But once that is done, then this area will become less yellow, is that right?
That is the hope and the goal, yes.
Yes. Well, then, can we ask them how long it's going to take to get that squared away?
Today at our meeting, it was discussed sometime in the next 8 years at the most.
Okay.
Federal government.
It's all contingent upon funding. If more funding is available, that time frame could be lessened.
Bob.
I'm having difficulty hearing her, but you're not being real encouraging when you say that 1% chance. That means that you're getting a once-in-a-100-year flood.
No, it's a 1% chance at any given event or per year. It's not once every 100 years. That is why the terminology was changed to 1% chance, not a 100-year floodplain.
Okay, so what would that statistic convert to?
It's a 1% chance every year that there's a floodplain, and City of Sioux Falls had 200-year events in 1 year, a couple of years ago in 2004.
And I'd like to hear what a certified dike is, and then why does the city encourage construction in the floodplain when I know the county doesn't, and I know that there are certain other cities that have tried to keep businesses and residences from building in a floodplain.
I can't, that is the city issue of why they encourage that, and I'll have Nancy tell you what a certified levy is according to FEMA.
According to the FEMA regulations in 44 CFR 6510, there's a long list of criteria that a levy has to meet in order to be considered adequate to be shown on our floodplain maps as providing protection. Some of those things are freeboard. It has to be a certain number of feet above how deep we think the water's going to be. It has to be structurally sound, things like that. Because this is a Corps of Engineers system, anything that they give us, basically, we believe. It's not ever going to be an argument between the Corps and FEMA. If they certify it and hand it to us, we're very happy with that.
And it's our understanding that information is available, and rather than prolong this in terms of those regs, I would hope they're available and someone can get them to
Yeah, I have
read them.
copies of the regulations if you'd like to see them.
Bob, I think, and then Vernon.
A question for someone. You indicated Lincoln County is not included as part of this map, yet there's a good share of the city in Lincoln County. I think Ann addressed part of that. Is there a map of Lincoln County available to the city at this time?
Yes, actually, I was even at the Lincoln County final meeting, which was about a year ago. There is a DFIR map for Lincoln County.
And could you share that with us, because that's part of the city?
I guess Troy's got it up there.
The map index shown here, it's not entirely legible, at least by my eye at this point. But the key point is that the City of Sioux Falls is included on the Minnehaha County DFIR in whole and excluded from the Lincoln County map. So we are showing the City of Sioux Falls on one map, and that is the Minnehaha County digital flood insurance rate map. So it is shown in one place.
Well, the reason I ask, I live about a block south of where it ends in yellow. And the creek that runs behind my house is susceptible to some flooding. And I suspect that the map, I hate to say this, is not accurate.
And that's, unfortunately, that is possible, and especially on small tributaries, things that FEMA has not recognized as a defined floodplain. And then that comes into those preferred risk policies and those classifications of insurance that are available. This is FEMA's way of saying, here is the number one highest risk area that the best engineers in the business can figure out as the areas that we need to focus on to prevent the most damage and most harm to people.
Thank you.
A comment and a question. First of all, the city hasn't encouraged growth in these areas. We just found out about the expanded floodplain. So to say that that's our policy is not a fair statement. My question is, where can citizens get a detailed map? Is there a website? Do they need to come to a city office? Because there's going to be a great deal of interest tomorrow morning on is my property in this, and we need something more detailed than this.
Absolutely. And the cities received these maps, and the mayor received them with an official letter today, but the digital information was presented to the city engineer several weeks ago, and that information is available both digitally and in paper form. The paper form is a little harder to come by in that I don't think we'll be able to distribute copies to everybody. But
so do you have a website this is on, or is the city putting it on a website?
It's not currently published on a website that I'm aware of, unless the city has done anything in that regard. But
Mike, can you address that just for the citizens that might be listening?
Mike Cooper, City of Sioux Falls, Planning and Building Services. We are planning to get this information on our website after tonight's public meeting. As you heard, this is fairly new information to many of us. We do have some time to get more information out to the public because we do expect a large volume of calls. We've had a number of them today. So we are going to do whatever we can to not only make information available to the citizens, but also look at scheduling other either open houses or other forums that we can get the word out, not only within the city limits, but also within other portions of Minnehaha County and other incorporated municipalities. And I would just say that you've heard that both the city and the county have been administering floodplain management ordinances for many, many years. And at least the city council has heard us talk in the past about looking at additional federal funding that we've been trying to solicit to finish our levee expansion project. That dollar amount that we're currently looking at is about $22 million of federal funds, the federal funding portion. We're hoping that by getting this information out now, it's going to help us look at whatever options we can find to speed up this project to its completion. Because I agree that in many cases, homeowners, business owners, if they have to buy federal flood insurance for 1 year or 8 years, it could be a significant financial impact on many, many people. So we are going to be very aggressive in looking at whatever funding options are out there to address this project and look at how we think we can get this levee project done sooner rather than later. But it is going to be an expensive proposition. We've known that for quite some time. The good news is that we do have about a year from now before this is going to take effect. But obviously, it is going to impact a lot of people after that 1 year period is over. So we're going to do whatever we can to get people aware of this project, the new maps, the flood insurance options, and then we're also going to be very aggressive in working with the property owners, the congressional delegation, whoever we can find to look at funding opportunities to get the levee system project completed.
Thanks, Mike. I think we're almost done with this presentation. Kermit, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just have a quick question here. There seems to be a rather large area of northern part of Sioux Falls that's in yellow, and some of that's near Colville Lake. Are we expecting a lot of flooding from Colville Lake then, or not?
No. In fact, the primary source, the flood source for the area shown in yellow is the Skunk Creek tributary to the Big Sioux River. So it is the Skunk Creek Basin that is flowing in predominantly into that Big Sioux.
Yeah, but there's still that large area up around Colville Lake that extends to the southwest.
That's really still that.
I mean, Skunk Creek?
That's still that flow that's coming down and essentially ponding up in that area and filling up that basement.
Further questions? We do understand and know that these are federal regulations. We appreciate the time that you've taken tonight to bring this to us. There is no action required, but I think all of the bodies here, and I would like additional information, and certainly I know as it affects Minnehaha County, we would like to have that, and Scott would be on top of that, and for the city too, so the people watching would have that information. That, I think, any closing comments?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to let you know that the maps are available at your community official, if your flood insurance administrator or your floodplain manager should have the maps. So they were mailed to the community CEO, and then they're made available to the public. You can buy flood insurance now, but it will become mandatory at some point. At this point, for the City of Sioux Falls, this information has just been released this evening, but for the remainder of the communities in the county, this information has been made public prior. This map up here is just reflecting City of Sioux Falls. So, but everything will start at this point in time. So there is a comment period that will be beginning. The next step will be that there will be 2 newspaper announcements in a period of about 10 days to announce that there are changes to the FEMA-defined floodplain, that there are changes to the base flood elevation that FEMA has shown on these maps. At the end of that second newspaper notice, there will be a 90-day appeal period, at which time people can come forward and make comments or appeals of the information that's presented on the map. Then there is an indeterminate amount of time for us to resolve those appeals that have come into us. And then we will issue a letter to the communities that will say in 6 months' time, and the letter will give you a date that says these maps will become effective. Overall, from this point right now, it will take about 9 to 12 months for these maps to become effective.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gerald, did you have another quick comment? Thank you. I think what your information is to allow people to know that this is coming, and if they get the insurance, they can save some money.
Yes, and they can talk to their insurance agent and get more information regarding their specific premiums. Yes.
Right. I'm guessing their banker.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so much.
Right.
We'll move on to item 2.
Just as a quick comment, the yellow area that's shown on the map right now, there has been water in those areas in the past. At one time, some of us that are a little older can remember when water was almost to 12th and Western, and that map shows that. Now, this raises a problem or a question for me. If this is the designated flood area, and we have levees that have contained it within that area, why does that not change?
There are essentially two sets of levy issues going on right now. There is what we call the provisionally accredited levies, and then there is an area that is not being recognized by FEMA as protected by levies. That area is what's really impacting the map. It is showing that there is an increased flow out of Skunk Creek, that tributary on the western side, and that it is so much larger that it's resulting in a larger floodplain. Once the levees are constructed, that they don't currently exist right now, or they're not tall enough right now to meet the criteria for our program, then they can become certified, and it would be the goal of the community and of FEMA to reduce that floodplain to that area defined by the levees. That's the goal. It will take time to reach that goal.
And I maybe made a mistake letting you go in, Bob, because we do need to close this. We have other, I know you have another meeting coming up after this one.
But I got one more comment.
Okay.
The levee system that was supposed to have been raised should have been completed by now, if I remember right on the time frame back when I was Public Works Commissioner. That time levee was supposed to have been completed by now. And because of federal funds being delayed in that project is one of the reasons that this levee system is not completed at the present time.
I am going to call this to an end, and Bob, we'll have that discussion, as I know you will, when they do another presentation to you.
Right.
Thank you so much this evening. We appreciate it. And our next item is our old item 1.
Item 1 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into Amendment Number 3 to the Joint Cooperative Agreement for the county involvement with the Homeless Advisory Board.
Alan Graff, I think, is going to... Good evening.
Good evening. Alan Graff, Homeless Advisory Board, here before you to amend our joint cooperative agreement to change the membership from 9 to 15 and to change that no more than 10 may be at-large members. That is the substance of the change. It is primarily to give us flexibility to appoint different or more members to this board without having to come back and ask for a change to the number and membership. So similar to other nonprofits, that's kind of a standard protocol.
Questions? I guess we're taking your word for it, Alan, that you need it.
Well, we'd appreciate it, because the next amendment would be to appoint a replacement for one of our board members who resigned representing the United Way and wanted to replace Lori Blum with Carrie DeGraff, who is with the United Way. So that would replace that position, but then we also have a recommendation to appoint Wendy Giebink, who would put us at 10, which is the reason for increasing the membership. Wendy Giebink is the homeless liaison with the Sioux Falls school system. We think she is a terrific addition to the Homeless Advisory Board representing homeless families and children. So we would ask for recommendations for approval there.
Okay, thank you, Alan. First, I'm going to look for approval of item number 1.
Move to approve. Brown.
Second, Costello.
I've got a second from Costello and a motion from Mr. Brown. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
I'd entertain the same motion for the county.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed on the county side.
Very
And
good.
then-
That was for the first one, correct? Okay. For the third resolution, are there any questions for Alan? Questions?
I would just like to introduce the two.
Please
They
do.
happen to be
Yeah.
here, so put a face with the name. Carrie DeGraff, please stand up. She represents United Way. We'd like to add her to the Homeless Advisory Board.
You have to get up here. We're not going to let you by
Giebink.
that easy.
Wendy Giebink represents the Sioux Falls school system and the homeless liaison.
Madam Chair, I would request, I know that we got resumes from these fine young women, but maybe for those people who are watching this evening, just very briefly tell us who you are and who you represent, and everyone will know why we asked you to join the HAB.
Thank you.
Carrie says I have to go first. I'm Wendy Giebink, and I have been the homeless liaison for the Sioux Falls School District. This is my 15th year with this position. So every day for 15 years I've worked with homeless families and children, and so unfortunately I think I have a lot of knowledge about that subject I wish didn't even exist. But I do actually know a lot about homeless families and children, and would welcome the chance to use that information in a positive way to help change things in our community.
Great. Any questions of Wendy? We thank you for doing this, Kate Willing. And
I'm Carrie DeGraff, and I'm with United Way. And at United Way, I do the initiatives. And so what we do is we focus on being very proactive and helping to prevent problems before they happen, and developing new ideas. And so that's why I was asked to be a part of this. Why the United Way is involved, we definitely already work with a lot of agencies who are helping to work with the homeless, and so we can help to provide some of that information, insight, and also avoid any duplication that could occur. So, yeah.
I think we're very lucky to have the two of you willing to serve on that board. Any questions or comments?
I would move on the city side to approve Wendy Giebink and Carrie DeGraff.
Got a motion, look for a second.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor of putting these fine ladies on the HAB board from the city side, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it.
Same motion for the county?
I will.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
It's not an easy task, as we know. Next item, I guess, is our briefing and presentation on pandemic flu. Judy.
Thank you. If you pulled out that pandemic flu, let me assure you, I don't plan to cover it page by page or really even do any more than refer to the fact that you have it. What we really do want to talk about is more I think you have the slide presentation, and we're talking about it this fall because we really are at the start of flu season. One, we want to update you a little bit on the work that's happening in pandemic flu planning between the city and the county, and then also talk about one of the kind of education pieces that we'll be looking at as we move through fall. And flu season is a perfect time to talk about pandemic flu. It's still, even though the national media has kind of lost it from its attention, it's still out there as a threat for local, state, and at the national level. We're still looking at it. And as we look at that pandemic plan, and that we're calling the plan, know that that is certainly it's not anything different than what we do all the time in planning for our emergencies and disasters. It's really just an annex to our local and city county emergency plans. So it's really one of those pieces that we're working on. I think what pandemic flu does for us, it lays and pulls together with the greatest magnitude of a health response that we need to think about here in Sioux Falls, and that's an important thought when we're thinking about pandemics. So it's an ever-changing annex in our plan. We think of it more as the infectious disease response rather than pandemic flu, but with the national attention around pandemic flu is why we label it that. This fall, as we look at the timing with flu season, we're going to step up and do a little bit of change. We started last year in doing some really concentrated education. We focused really on contingency planning for businesses, for government, getting the kickoff of getting toolkits and that kind of information out to schools, to healthcare organizations. There's lots of planning groups going at many levels. This year, we're changing focus a little bit. As I said, we're focusing on educating about the flu. Every year you see we talk about stopping the flu. We see flu vaccine clinics. And this year, as we do that, we're going to focus a little more on social distancing. If we look at the slide, it looks at saving lives is the focus. And the focus in a pandemic is a little bit different. The first thing listed is antivirals. We'll be looking at something where we don't have those normal medications that we all count on whenever we get ill. And so as we look at that kind of a focus, we want to look at what kind of changes might we have to do, what kind of community interventions might we need to do. Our partners this year, the school districts, are going to be an important partner as we do this, because as we look in government here at our role in working with the media, we're working right now with hospitals on our media and education plan. As we put that together and we do PSAs, as we do something on Channel 16, I think you also got a copy of the toolkit. We've reformatted the website, added some new tools to that. The toolkits will be going out to all the local governments in Minnehaha County and all the school systems. We add the ability for them to call for other educational training kinds of pieces. There's some print brochures that are in there, so there's a print media. There will be other kinds of media that we'll also be looking at. But with the school system, as they partner, they will be sending home information on pandemic flu to families, every family in the school system. And one of the things that we'll be talking about is that community action. And we're going to be looking at those kinds of things that we need to do in the community. Communication is certainly the strongest emphasis in here. We're educating people. Last year we started with what is pandemic flu, educating some of the response techniques. We're working, like I said, with the hospitals to say, in the event of how will we come together so that we have one briefing. We have, as the healthcare system, we say this is what's happening in Sioux Falls, here's how you can be taken care of. But we're also now educating on that social distancing and saying how can you as individuals in the community be prepared. So as we look at thinking of in normal day-to-day life, we think of isolation and quarantine. Isolating, someone's ill, they can infect others, they go in isolation in the hospital. In a pandemic situation where hospital beds may be short, we're going to want people to stay at home. It's a message we send every year with the flu. Stay at home if you're ill. Sometimes workplaces start to struggle with that because we like to have full staffing. But it's something to start considering. So that stay-at-home message, if you haven't seen the Be Ready campaign already, the state has rolled out, will be something also that we'll start to emphasize here. Sending out to, and we have been with businesses, to think about how do you look at, if you were in workplace reductions, how do you look at changing that information? Again, the school system will be talking to families about school closings. Where businesses are thinking about workplace continuity, maybe they have to be flexible with hours. The school system will be talking to sending family information, say, if we were in the middle of a pandemic, we might need to close school for a period of time. That's going to be very different information. That would be why we wanted to, again, we're going to do some Channel 16 information. We're going to do that kind of preparation in the community to say what would happen. At our September 6th city-county meeting, we talked about the kinds of things that would change in the community. This would affect all workplaces. When we have a community where 75% of the population, 75% of mothers or families have both or parents working, or single parents, families, that's going to cause issues. But as a community, we're going to need to pull together for those sorts of issues. Now, why would we look at those kinds of extreme measures? And I want to assure you right here that, first of all, I'm going to point you to the fact that, notice that I'm using the CDC slides. Why would we go to that level of action and say to the community, we need to work with our listing and decreasing social contacts to that level? And we're going to use some 1918 data to illustrate. And as the CDC went back and this, we're taking the recommendations as we work with them and to do this future planning. They've looked at the flu that was probably one of the largest pandemic that we've had in most recent history. They've also looked at others, but they started to look at that preparation. What can you do? Certainly preparing a healthcare system is part of it. If we look at that goal, the goal here is to buy time and to reduce the volume of cases that you have at any one time. So in looking at the curve here, if we look at a no intervention curve, that pink one, what we want to become is something that stretches out the number of cases that we have over time. And that's by decreasing the number of social contacts that people have. That is exactly the thing that we talk about with the flu. If you If you're ill, stay home. But when we're in a pandemic situation and we don't have the ability to think that we're going to have enough medication to have vaccines, which we vaccinate people every year with and give them a better chance to not get the flu or not get it as severely. We won't have that new vaccine. What we would be looking at is those old history textbooks, and they pulled those people that came from Toronto with SARS when it wasn't a flu, but they blew off the dust off their old pandemic or epidemic plans, and that's what they started to do. They isolated and quarantined, and they also looked at decreasing social contacts. This illustration, we're not going to spend much time looking at it again. CDC statistics where they took, you can see along the right-hand side, various communities, large communities, MSAs. These were the graphing of their actual cases for, it's the death rate is the vertical column over on the left, and the horizontal column is the time frame across the flu epidemic of 1918. The reason 1918 is it's a similar type of flu. It's not necessarily exacting. And what we'll look at, and the peaks are the highest number of cases and death rate at one time. And you can see there's a lot of variability. And I'm going to focus on two of those cases. If we look at Philadelphia versus St. Louis. A little bit of the good and the best. If we remember, we're wanting to flatten out that curve, and the reason to flatten out that curve is our hospitals and healthcare systems are going to be maxed out in their response, and they will be like everybody else. We'll be all looking at some decreased staffing levels. Again, this is a what if, and people still say when situation, but if we look at planning to flatten that curve, I look at somewhere in between, right, those levels would be the standard hospitalization. St. Louis is the lowest line, the red line. Philadelphia is the peak. If we look at what the differences were between those, the death rate in St. Louis was about 347 per 100,000, greater than their normal death rate during that flu epidemic. And for Philadelphia, that death rate was 719. So what was the difference between those two communities? If you look at the St. Louis and compare this slide, the first 2 weeks was roughly the same. Now again, there are many influences on how the disease came to the city. So we're just looking at some really broad stroke comparisons. But what is known to have happened, and when you look at the history of those at that point of time by newspapers and reports at the CDC, is that in St. Louis, a group of physicians and health officials started right away as there became a very small increase, a 2% increase in the death rate due to flu. They said immediately said we need to start closing schools and having fewer very large public gatherings. And they implemented that about on this timeline and October 2nd, roughly, 2nd or 3rd. It's hard to tell that. If you go look at Philadelphia, and next slide. Oops, I must have jumped ahead one. Okay. If you look at Philadelphia, there's their timeline, and on this slide now, as you look at they have both the St. Louis date of the early date, and then they're about 10 days later is all. In Philadelphia, they had a very large city parade, citywide. They were looking at repaying some loan debt for World War I, and they decided they were going to have it. And they did. Boys, again, we could be looking at the response rates. There could be other influences, but what I'd point out to you on is the 10.8. They were at an attack rate of 10.8 because the line started going up. You can see it, the increase in cases, just as right about that period of time. Go to the next one. Oops, sorry. Mine must be in the slightly different. Can you go back to St. Louis a minute? If you look at the attack rate there at St. Louis, it was 2.2. This is why it's important, because we're looking to say, again, we know we're taking old statistics. We know the world has changed to something. But if slowing down the social contact is what we have to do. Those will be the decisions we will be faced with at that time. And educating people on the importance of what this could do is why we want to start that this fall, because, again, I'm of the opinion it's not going to, all the education, it may not happen this year, but the more information we give people, the better it will be. Okay. Now, just one more illustration of pyramids. This just stacks St. Louis, which is the same pink line that we've been looking. The other lines, and it's a lot of detail, start to make some assumptions about 1918 if we were looking at any large city in the United States today, saying we want to start at that, what percent would we of attack rate would we start to look at? And this is just comparing various attack rates. The St. Louis, again, still looks like a wonderful model. Just to give you information, that little blip about at week 15, 16 on St. Louis, they had lifted their ban on schools opening about 2 weeks before that. So their schools were back open at that time, whereas everybody else, they learned a little bit later and then they kept them closed a little bit longer. The last illustration in looking at that is if we were to take the 1918 flu and make some comparisons about the amount of illness. So looking at the comparison in Sioux Falls as an MSA, taking today's census figures, taking today's national census figures with the national percentages, and then with the Sioux Falls as an MSA. So that would be, certainly the greater Sioux Falls and into a four-county region at this point in time. If we look at that severe 1918, like be the 59-25 people who need hospitalization, again, thinking over time, that is much more easily handled by our healthcare system. Even then, it's going to be it still would be a difficult task if it's over many weeks than over a few weeks. ICU care has certainly changed. Ventilator care has changed since 1918. But the increase in social contacts is also greatly changed. We're a global society. We probably won't have weeks of warning like they did in 1918. If I look back to SARS, that was days of warning. So these will be things that, as a health officer or somebody else in my place, we'll be looking at very quickly. We've already have an infectious disease contact process within the community so that we can respond quickly, because quickly is the way we in healthcare will bring that for a community and a very large-scale decision. Should we be in this place? Again, the experts, nobody's going to say when and if, but it certainly is out there as a threat, and we want people to understand what it is, and this is why we're kicking off this education.
I have a question or a comment and then a question. Judy, I see you have staff out in the audience. I, for one, am so proud to live in a community that has this toolkit put together with every piece of information that we need as a community to, heaven forbid that this should happen. And I'm just so proud of you and your staff, whoever they are out there, who helped you put this together. I know that Minnehaha County is being given some credit, but I don't see anybody from Minnehaha County out here, so I'm assuming it was you and your staff.
Lynn can't be here.
All the money we gave.
Lynn couldn't be here. I would like to recognize Sandy Friends and Morris Forsting for my staff, because they are certainly vitally important to getting all the print detail that we have here and the website in place. The planning committee then starts to be our Ken McFarland, Mike Hall, Regan Smith, Lynn Young, and myself, and then Sandy, and sometimes other consultants as needed on that.
So who are the people that actually
did this piece? I would give most of that credit to Sandy and to Morris.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments? Judy, I have one. City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County. Again, where's Lincoln County?
Lynn is at a conference today, so he's out of town, wanted to be here, but Lynn is at a conference.
Yeah.
You don't hear as well as you thought you do. Lincoln County, I asked about.
Lincoln County, as we began this project, They did some of their own grant writing, so this is, we're using grant funds through the state, and the second year of grant funds is really focused on the media and the printing and all of those things that we've got. All of the brochures that are, Lincoln County did it their way, which everybody has their choice.
And because of the closeness, I always ask that question. Do you need any action from us?
No, this plan is that you just need it to be updated. We wanted you to be informed, so when questions get asked, you understand why we will be talking about school closings.
Well, I echo Carol's comments from Minnehaha County. We're just eternally grateful for the great work you guys have done.
I'd like to also remind, since this is the first time that the county's come down here, if anybody from the audience has comments, they need to come up to the microphone so we can get you recorded. Has anybody else got any business for the good of the order? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Jameson.
Jameson moves.
Second.
Benega seconds. All those in favor of adjournment from the city side, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it.
Move we adjourn.
Motion second from the county. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All same side.